We have got a mess in the garage as we are tearing parts off of the Typhoon left and right, upgrading everything in the process. But first I want to talk to you guys a little bit about Vortec heads for the Cyclones and Typhoons. Stick around. What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the garage. And there's a lot of stuff that you can't see that's on the floor around me. We just have so many parts. Double roller timing chains, front covers with crank pickups, cam sync distributors, exhaust transmission, turbo, electric fans. We've got so many parts to get put on this Typhoon. And last week I stumbled across somebody that was selling a set of Vortec heads for a GMC Typhoon, Sonoma, our Cyclone, and I wanted to do a quick breakdown. I paid $1,000 for these things, but I want to show you the difference between the Vortec head and the Typhoon heads. And these Vortec heads are the 113 castings, and the big thing is the heads that came on the Cyclones and the Typhoons are probably the worst 4.3 liter heads that Chevy ever made. The biggest restriction in making horsepower are these heads. Even the exhaust manifolds with the old cast manifolds are good for over 500 horsepower, but you have to get rid of the factory heads. So I'm going to pull the camera in tight over here. We're going to take a look at both the existing head and the new 113 casting head, and then we'll take a look at the lower intake manifold and what modifications have to be done in order to swap over to the higher flowing Vortec heads. Okay, hopefully you can see everything all right from this angle. I try to kind of get a good angle so you can see what's going on. You can tell right away that this is our Vortec head. Look at the intake runner size, just significantly taller, more airflow on all three of them. Everything's good there. Now on the exhaust side, we're not going to focus on that because I don't think that there's much to be gained on the exhaust side of these things. They look to be about the same dimension, all that stuff. Now there is a lot of information out there, and I don't know that it's necessarily misinformation about running this Vortec style head on a Typhoon, but the big thing being is that the mounting provisions on these were an angle mount, and you can see here where this block has been, or these heads have been drilled and tapped for the lower intake manifold off the Vortec 4.3 or the Typhoon 4.3. These are the same, but here on the factory ones, you can see on the water jackets where the outer two are, has the difference two styles. And so literally they're just a straight bolt in with this manifold. But something to be aware of, if you look at the manifolds, one of the first things that will stand out is the amount of meat. Let me make sure that's in camera there. It's not really, so let me scoot it over. If you pay attention, look at how much has been added across the outer edge of this, and literally somebody just came in here and added welding on there and then ground it down and had it decked. But that's because if you try and run a factory one, the ports are tall enough that they're actually going to cause a sealing issue on the top side of the heads. So that is the big two things that allows you to convert over. The angles are the same stuff like that. Don't worry about any of that. If you want to do this conversion yourself, it's not going to be that hard. You're going to need to have some material built up on the top side edge of the lower intake manifold so you can get closer up and cover the entire port shrouding. And then you just have to drill the 4 holes on each head so you can use the same mounting provisions. You can see I've already got some die chem on this set or this lower intake manifold because even though these have been built up, they've not been ported. We will end up running a Vortec gasket because a Typhoon gasket is going to close this port off because it's way smaller. And so we're going to go over to a Vortec gasket and we will do gasket matching on our lower intake manifold. And the nice thing about it is there's no water channels. I guess there is right here. This is the only one that you could possibly get into a water channel, but you'd really have to do a lot of work on that. So we'll be able to clean up the injector boss area and maybe expand out the sides a little bit and make sure that we're getting a good smooth airflow from our upper intake manifold to the lower intake manifold into the heads. But Hopefully this will dispel some of the myth out there about running the Vortec heads, help some of you Cyclone, Typhoon guys out there to make the decision. These Vortec heads are not expensive by any means. So kind of one of those things, like if you need to have this done, it might be cheaper to find a set of Vortec heads like the 113 castings and take your lower intake manifold and have it modified to fit. The other side of it is with the 113s, they use a screw type rocker arm with a brace that runs across for all 6 of them. But because of this, you can convert this over to a stud rocker arm. Comp cams, a lot of different places make them. And so what we'll end up doing, this is a M8 125. Some guys drill it out to an M10 150. We're not going to be doing anything aggressive on the cam, so we're going to stick with the M8 125 to a standard poly lock size poly nut. And then I'll be putting Scorpion rocker arms. Be aware with a center bolt valve cover though, you're going to have to run the narrow rocker arms and they're going to have to be self-aligning. That's the big thing, is self-aligning roller rocker arms that are narrow. That way everything clears and you're going to be good to go. Okay, hopefully that helps clear up some of the air on switching the heads out. This is probably the short of a turbo upgrade on a Typhoon or a Cyclone, one of the best bang for the buck mods that you can do on those engines. Get more airflow. It's going to lower your boost pressure. You're going to make more power at a lower boost set point. I hadn't planned on doing this, but I just so happened to stumble across a good set. As I said, I paid probably a little bit more than I wanted to, but I'd rather pay for a set that was already set up so I could see exactly what was going on than try to dig through all the forums, figuring out kind of the information that's going on and how to do the modification myself. Now that I've seen it, super simple. There's not that much to it. In fact, you know, for the most part, if you could TIG weld and build up the aluminum on that, or you might even be able to get away with a spool gun and just fill out that lower intake manifold so it's going to cover properly, drilling and tapping the heads is not going to be a big ordeal. So there's plenty to do. I was hoping to get the cam in. I got a comp cam on order. It's been on order for almost 3 months now. I just don't think it's going to make it in time unless it gets here in the next couple days, because I think Tuesday my new studs show up for the rocker arms. By then, these things are going back on. We got to put this thing back together. We're running out of time. So I'm going to get back to it. I got plenty to do. I want to thank you as always for stopping by the garage. Remember, ABT, always be tuning.